out in Chicago. I see Chicago as united. I really look out for each other. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulil Kareem. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our third session. This session is specifically, we made it open for Q&A. Whatever is top of your mind, you are free to ask those questions. If there is going to be only one guideline I would provide, is that try to avoid very deep, tricky issues. Typically, you can take that on with your local shuyukh, and especially issues like moon sighting, Zabiha versus non-Zabiha, those are like lifelong issues for us, so avoid those. But other than that, anything related to the topic, anything in general, day-to-day life you have issues with, it's all open and fair game. So before I start, just to put a couple of things and highlight that you may not be aware of. This morning we had a great session by youth. Our youth, they were divided into two groups, and they did a contest happened, and then it was one group had a contest on the best dawa presentation, and this is 10 years and less, and these kids put together very good presentation. You can take a look, it's available in MPR. And then another group of students, they had a contest on the 2050 vision for a MAPS newsletter. And that again was something our kids listening to us, listening to these speakers, they are thinking ahead. What would be the vision? What kind of activities would be? Again, those presentations are also available. It's good that you go around and take a look at them and encourage our youth. Okay. So inshallah, coming back to this session, if I have the volunteers are out here, and they should be distributing cards. Write down your question, inshallah, and then pass it here. Meanwhile, while you are doing it, I'm going to ask a few questions. We'll start with our shuyukh. And these speakers, they have experiences working in their own communities, and especially when they travel, they get to experience a lot. And they are, inshallah ta'ala, will be able to provide some insight as to how to relate those issues which are faced by Muslims across the US and other parts of the world. So, beginning with that, I would start with one sort of icebreaker question that to our, I think I can choose anybody, inshallah. The issue is it's about how. Yes, it's about guidance to parents when it comes to when they notice their kids are losing track or they are not showing that much interest in the education. How should parents respond to? And it so happened that 2 weeks ago there was a spring break in Seattle, and during the spring break, a son of my friend, he decided to drop out from his school, and he's a 10th grader. And then this reality hits home, and then how as parents should go about it. It was just a heartbreaker for that for my friend, that you deal with a lot of youth and you do youth counseling. I would really like you to shed some light.
Do you want someone else to start?
I'm sorry.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon to everybody, or to all the college students in the room. Good morning. MashaAllah. We ask Allah to bring benefit from us, inshallah, and allow us to be conduits of His benefit to community, inshallah. Generally, everyone's going to have something really powerful to say and really meaningful. Generally speaking, when it comes to raising kids, so I don't have children yet myself. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us righteous children, inshallah. But I work with like hundreds of teenagers, so a lot of parents are like, well, you don't know what it's like. Well, I kind of do know what it's like because I work with your kids. Your kids come to tell me things that they don't tell you. So So the reality is, I think that when I looked at my friends or the youth that I work with, when I looked at their relationship with their parents, and I've seen, you know, the best practices, so to speak, in those relationships, the sort of underlying successful common denominator that I've noticed is the ability to communicate openly without you know, any sort of recourse. You know, allowing the young people to feel that their home is a safe zone, you know, a place where they can feel tranquil. And a lot of times what we find in our community, whether it's marriages or, you know, family development, kids, raising kids, parenting, is that oftentimes we'll focus all of our energies and all of our analysis on the event. So this young boy, this young man dropped out of school, out of high school. And so all of the drama, all of the energy, all of the emotion is focused around his dropping out of high school, when in fact we don't really pay much attention, and perhaps we actually actively ignore the years that led up to that decision. You know, someone just doesn't wake up one morning and say, I want to drop out of school. Well, they might, I mean, you know, they might in an emotional state, but generally speaking, taking that step, making that decision takes like planning, takes thought, takes some sort of, you know, even for a teenager, it takes some sort of level of commitment that is, you know, cultivated over time. They don't just wake up and say that. So what led them to that point where they decided to do this thing? Isn't necessarily a horrible decision for that person. You know, everyone has differentiated educational paths, but is it a horrible decision for that person? I may feel that way, but again, that conversation is important. So number one is, how well do you communicate with your family? Like, does your spouse, do your kids, do they feel comfortable coming and telling you? You know, one time I was doing a workshop for MSA kids, so these are like college-aged young people, and it was about marriage. And one of the girls said, you know, I want to marry somebody, and he's not from the corner that my dad grew up in India. You know, I can only marry like on this one street, right? And like 8 of the houses are my cousins. So I only have like really realistically like 3 shots at who I'm getting married to according to my dad. And she said, but I met this brother at the university, he's part of the MSA, he's a good guy, he's really good to his parents, he's just a great, like motivated, ambitious, caring individual, mashallah, compassionate, you know, has passion for the deen, also very respectful and mature, and I really am interested in him, but he's not from my ethnic background. And so I said, well, you know, why don't you just go talk to your parents about that? And she said, no, I could never talk to my parents about that. Once a young person says the phrase, I could never talk to my parents about X, Y, Z, you have a surefire disconnect in their communication standard, right? Once a young person says, I cannot, la yajuz, like it's not permissible for me to have a discussion with my caretaker and compassionate nurturer, my parents, then you know that something bad is going to happen down the line. And so once that channel of communication is broken, then it's like a free fall at that point. Like you're lucky if the kid ends up okay, and subhanAllah, it's unfortunate if the kid ends up making decisions that could be really harming and detrimental to, or harmful and detrimental to themselves. So that's number one, is communication. Ask yourself. Number two is, I was once at a youth qiyam, it was a boys' youth qiyam, and I asked this question, and it really shocked me. I said, how many of you, your parents, say, I love you on a daily basis? Like whether it's like you wake up, not when they get good grades, like mashallah, A+, I love you, right? No, but like every day, like I love you, I'm proud of you. And even through your struggles, I appreciate your effort. You do amazing things, and even though you may fall and trip here and there, you may disappoint us in the decisions that you make sometimes, but I still love you throughout all those times, good and challenging. I said, how many of your parents say that? And no one raised their hands. And I asked them, I said, how often does your parents, your dad or mom, how often do they say I love you to you? And they said like maybe once every 3 days. If the articulation of love is not at least equal to the articulation of criticism, then you're going to plant an emotional time bomb inside of this young person. Like they need to know that they're appreciated and loved and that you're proud of them. That's what they want. They want validation from those that mean something to them. And when parents withhold that appreciation and validation, then their meaning to the kid drops substantially. But parents don't realize how much that verbiage means, and that active verbiage, like saying it and meaning it. So my question, if we're going to have this conversation about, shocking revelations that kids might have to their parents, et cetera, et cetera. And again, this could be a whole weekend-long workshop, to be honest with you. Is how good is the communication, and is the young person appreciated and loved in a way that is not conditional, only with good grades, only when they get praise from other uncles and aunties. No, do you tell this person that you love and care and appreciate them even when they make mistakes, right? Even when they struggle. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us success, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. The only thing I wanted to actually add to what Abdurrahman mentioned, Jazakallah khair Abdurrahman for the words of wisdom, is that the truth of the matter is that while we want and we would really hope that there is that kind of relationship between the parents and the children, of sharing everything in that communication, the truth is that that's not always going to happen, right? So there are going to be cases where children will not share certain things with their parents and vice versa. So in that case, if it's not happening, of course we want to encourage that, and I think Abdurrahman set the pace for that. But when I'm working with college students, the one thing that I've realized is that there are going to be certain cases in which they're just not going to say something to their parents about whatever the matter is. So in that case, I think one of the ways in which we can deal with this is to ensure that there are role models that you have identified within your community that your children are able to engage with. So whether that's coming to this masjid, for example, for many of you as you're sitting here, the truth of the matter is that you're involved in this community because it's going to, inshallah, provide that kind of safety net, as well as an environment where you can raise your family and engage with people and talk to people. So if your children are being raised in an environment, you should really be able to identify certain people within that community that you trust, that your children have access to and can go talk to them, whether it's the local imam or it's people within a halaqah or people that you are interacting with, because the truth of the matter is your children are not going to come and share every single thing with you. It would be beautiful and wonderful and really awesome if they do, but that's not always going to happen. So the other option, inshallah, that I'm proposing is to identify people within that community that they can really talk to, look up to, and build that sense of brotherhood and sisterhood. The other thing I wanted to mention, when we're talking about the confident Muslim and the story that the brother shared, who's moderating, a lot of young people today who are Muslim, even growing up in the United States, there's a statistic done that many of the there's about 18%, Dr. Seerah out of the University of Michigan has been doing research on young Muslims, which is absolutely amazing, you should look into it. About 18% of American Muslims by the age of college are actually attempting suicide because their parents have forced them into a direction that they are not interested in college, right? They want to, let's say that they're really interested in studying engineering, but their parents are like, no, you're going to become a doctor, right? I can imitate Daisy since I'm Daisy, right? They're forcing their children into areas that they're not really interested in, and then when they're getting into college, they're having to choose between majors, and they're not really successful, or they're not interested, and unfortunately, it is leading a lot of young Muslims to contemplate, like, maybe I'm not good enough at this, maybe I just shouldn't be involved in this. When Amir Khan, many of you who are interested in Bollywood, gotta refer to Bollywood inside the masjid, he basically, when he produced the film Three Idiots, which the non-Desis, you gotta watch it. He did research on basically northern India, right, the subcontinent, and he found that about 83% of parents are forcing their children into whatever, they're not really that interested, right? So basically this film features how young people are trying to engage in the kind of, fields and education that they're interested in, but their parents are forcing them otherwise. So I really think we should start looking into how we can really encourage them in fields that they're really interested in, because this is one of the few countries in the world where you do have a spectrum of opportunities, whereas in other parts of the world, for example, you may not have the same same choices for finances as well. So those two things I think are very pertinent and practical that we should keep in mind.
Jazakumullah khair. So next question is for Imam Aziz. One of the trends we are seeing in Ustada Tahira alluded last night that the divorce rate among Muslims is reaching close to 40%, and let alone the wider community over 50%. And considering that in many cases we are seeing that these people are practicing Muslim. A story not from this city, I heard that girl and boy growing up together in the same Islamic school, they both became Hafaz, and a year later marriage fell apart. So can you shed some light that what things really are missing and what things we should be focusing on?
They want me to squeeze in. Start.
Just to bring balance to this sofa. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. I get asked this question actually quite frequently, and people are almost disillusioned. You know, I posted on Facebook recently a story of a brother, an Arab brother, real successful, down to earth, a real humble, beautiful guy. Came to my office in tears, and he says, Imam, I've done everything by the book. I married the one that has the deen. I made so many compromises, and I said, you know what, this is the one, she has the deen, this is what the Prophet says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, idfar bidat ad-deen. You know, take the one that has the deen, otherwise your hands will be dipped in dirt. Right? I followed the advice, and my marriage still fell apart. I'm losing my faith. What's going on? What should I do? I tried so hard to think of some clever answer to give him that would change his life to the better, but I failed. And I apologize, and I said some comforting words and some supportive words, but I spent a week thinking about that. Where do things go haywire when it comes to marriage? And I can't think that I've reached a comprehensive answer to this question, but I think part of it that, Brother Nasser, basically asked, where do things go wrong? What is missing in this picture? And I think that sometimes what is missing is that we misunderstand the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. تُنْكَحِ الْمَرْأَ الْأَرْبَعَ, right? That, a woman is married for 4 reasons. And I think in a more general sense, the Prophet ﷺ is talking about marriage. The 4 criteria of marriage, right? Beauty, wealth, family, and the 4th one is deen, right? And he says, make sure that you get the one with deen. The problem is that when people find the one seemingly with deen, and obviously when we say deen, we're talking about ritual practice. We're talking about outward appearances. We're talking about the beard and the hijab. And the sister, mashallah, she says, Jazakallah khair all the time. That means she's religious, right? And the brother has a beard and he volunteers at the masjid and he leads the youth group. He's religious. Khalas, that's it. And the minute we find what we consider to be deen, because again, the question is about religious people within the community of practicing Muslims. Or, although I think divorce rate is just as high, in the other sectors of our Muslim community. But we're talking about the quote-unquote religious crowd, right? Once I find the so-called, the person of the deen, I lower my guard and I completely disregard the other criteria. Compatibility, personality, qualities, characteristics, family, upbringing, how her parents are, the conditions of her upbringing, none of that matters anymore because again, hey, I found the one with the deen. And when you look at the relationship of a husband and wife throughout the day, I mean, the problems that we face as married couples are real problems, right? It's not about the 5 minutes we spend praying with each other, right? It's not about the hadith that we exchange, once a day or twice a day. It's not about the dua of the coup when we get in the car and we remind the kids of the dua. Marriage is a difficult and thorough undertaking. It's about, taking the kids to soccer practice. It's about, having the patient, for, their play rehearsals. It's about doing math homework with them. It's about my wife having time and energy to make food for, 15 people that are coming to our house. It's about, a husband and wife are able to be patient with each other through the tough circumstances of life. And ritual practice is not the one that will make your marriage survive. I'm telling you straight up. You can have someone that is not very religious in our strict sense, but that marriage survives because the underlying basic human qualities are there. So if you ask me, my personal opinion, why marriages of religious people sometimes fall apart, is that, number one, we misunderstand the hadith, and we think that practicing Islam in the outward sense is sufficient to sustain a stable relationship, and that is not true. Number 3, we don't look at the other qualities that we're supposed to be looking at. The Prophet ﷺ tells you, you want to look at everything else, and if that person has deen as well, then alhamdulillah, this is the right person for you. But don't take the one with all the other qualities without the deen, because that is not the best state of affairs. But if you can find someone that has all, right, then that is the right way to go. And let me dare, and I'll end with this, I'll dare to say, and some of you will be offended to hear this, if you find someone that has the basic human qualities, someone that has the principles, the values, the tenderness, the forgiving attitude, right, that smiles in your face, that is willing to cope with the challenges of life, and you're able to figure that out, and that person is still falling a little short in terms of ritual practice, I say, wallahi, that is your best fit. And inshallah, the deen will grow over time. Here I am, I just said it.
Jazakallah khair. So this next question is from crowd. Imam Abdul Malik, if we can attempt, inshallah. Question is, why are young Muslims joining ISIS? They claim to be religious, so what's broken in our education system? Also, why are, the second part of the question, why are we as masajid and Muslim communities, individuals, very defensive such that instead of volunteering time, education, information to our governments to help fight ISIS, we do the opposite and slow the government's efforts to fight terrorism? Why do we get offended when we are searched at the airport as opposed to going up to TSA and asking to be searched? Shouldn't we be more proactive as opposed to so defensive?
It sounds like the question that has the answer to all the questions. Well, Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not obsessed with ISIS, and I don't really pay attention to all that foolishness. And there's a reason why. As the government fights ISIS in one part of the world, they're helping them in another part of the world. I'm not saying it. That's what Senator McCain said. That's what Hillary Clinton has said on record, that the government supplies weapons to ISIS in Syria. They fight ISIS in Iraq. For me, as a Muslim, I think that Muslims in America should take their eyes off all the international crisis and focus on how we can produce the best Muslims in the gates of North America and build institutions that fulfill our dreams. And I'm going to tell you why I say that. Listen, I'm going to tell you why I say that. Since the day I became a Muslim, there was a war in Afghanistan. Muslims have wars with, Muslims, and listen, this game of war is a business. And I'm not going to tell Muslims in America to speak out against terrorist organizations that will cut your head off, or burn you alive, or kidnap your children, unless the government of America tells me first that they will guarantee our security in America when we speak up against people overseas that potentially may harm us and our family. We're not going to get stuck between speaking against people outside the country and then have a government that wants to harass us and imprison us and search us every 5 minutes. They have to make a decision. Either they accept Muslims Americans as part of the American society, or they see us as a foreign entity and a threat to national security. So they got to first tell me, are you going to protect the Muslims in America that assist in speaking out against those who are labeled as terrorist organizations? But just for the record, I'm not obsessed with ISIS, I'm not obsessed with Al-Qaeda, I'm not obsessed with CIA or FBI, because at the end of the day, what you see on TV is not even half of the true story. Okay? Because those groups are supported by countries that have alliances with Western countries. And my recommendation to you is, number one, protect your children. Okay? And the way you protect Muslim youth in America against joining radical movements around the world is you give them direction and you give them purpose. Why do Muslim youth, why do they find attraction in any of these groups or any religious movement that has a sense of extremism to it? Because for so long, we abandoned the youth and we only notice them when there's a crisis. It's like, oh my God, they're taking our children. Wait a minute. Well, what were you doing before? You can't wait till there's a crisis and then say, oh, they got my children. No. Just like the brother made a point earlier, when the kid drops out of 10th grade, right? I can relate to that. I dropped out of 10th grade. And I took my shahada, and when I got to school, I realized that the school was the wrong place for me to be because they wasn't teaching me nothing. I had a 10th grade math and science teacher who would open up the New York Times, light his cigarette, and tell us the answers at the back of the book. If anybody opened the door, act like you're studying. I said, I gotta go. Because when I became a Muslim, I realized the sacredness of knowledge and the importance of learning. And I was not going to be institutionalized in America's school and find my way to the gateways of their prison. I refused to sit in that school. So when a young person tells you they don't want to go to school no more, you need to find out why. Maybe there's some child molester in the school. Maybe the person that's supposed to be their teacher is doing things to them that make them feel uncomfortable. Maybe there are people trying to put drugs in their hand. Maybe there are people trying to recruit them to do things that are immoral. Before we condemn young people, we need to understand young people and sit down and develop relations and find out what is the reason you don't want to be in this school. Because it's not that the person don't want to be in school, they just don't want to be in that school. And this sister gave us a perfect example last night of what she went through in school, of just trying to be a Muslim. When she stepped into the public arena, you know, people with the hijab, people calling your name, teachers rejecting you. So if I ever find a Muslim boy or girl that says, you know what, I'm not going to school, my first question is, can we have an open conversation? Why? Because some of the schools in America are not safe for Muslim children, period. And one of the greatest things Malcolm X said is that a tragedy of a people is to give your children to the adversaries to educate them. Why don't Muslims educate their own children? Why don't we let everybody else teach our children? And teach them how to think, and teach them what their dreams and aspirations are. And one of the cultural phenomena, and I'm going to end with this, one of the cultural phenomena that we have in some parts of the Muslim community, it's not everywhere. Some of the Muslims in America are the children of colonialism. So the only way you have value if you are quote unquote highly educated. What does that mean? You have a PhD, you're a doctor, you're an engineer, you have status, you may not pray, you may not know which way is the Qibla. I was in a brother's house who represents the United Nations. In his house, he said, brother, which way is the Qibla? It was Ramadan. He said he don't know. His wife screamed at him. The Qibla is that way. He turned me in the wrong direction. How? He works at the United Nations representing the Muslim government. But he didn't know the Qibla in his own home. So what I'm saying is, I'm going to go back to your point. I said to the government of America publicly, if we as Muslims know someone is trying to do something to hurt our country and damage the lives of our people, we will stop them. We can call 911. But what you have to be mindful of, which again, most Muslims don't be honest. Some of the things you see Muslim youth being accused of, they have been set up by government agencies, and it's a plot, just to make it look like they caught somebody. It's called entrapment, and it's real. You know what it's like to have a young boy, 16 years old, be picked up for terrorism, can face 30 years in prison? He don't know what he's doing. And I'm going to share something with you I never told nobody. I never told this to nobody publicly. When I first became a Muslim, I was being recruited to go to Afghanistan in the 80s, when Ronald Reagan said it was okay. And the brothers who were recruiting us came from overseas. And I saw hundreds of brothers go fight in Afghanistan and come back. Hundreds. And I was only 16 years old. And I remember raising my hand in the room, saying that I wanted to go. And a brother looked, he said, no brother, you're too young. And what motivated me? You want to know what motivates the youth? And I told this to the government. When you keep seeing Muslim children being killed, Muslim women being raped, Muslim cities being bombed, as a young person you become frustrated and you want something to be done. You don't know what to do, but you just don't want to sit down and have people keep telling you, we got to make dua, we got to make dua, we got to make dua. No, some people want the killing of Muslims to stop, and therefore they become extremists because of extreme circumstances. Now, it's not right, but it happens. So I say to Muslims in America, number one, we have to deal with real issues. I say to the government, number two, if we are to help you, which is real tricky, it's real tricky working with government agencies, because one minute they're your friend, and the next minute, they treat you like Saddam, you get a rope put around your neck. So I say work with government agencies in the open. No secret backdoor deals. I'm not spying on no Muslims. I'm not setting up the imam. I'm not getting people to say things that normally they wouldn't say. I'm not doing none of that. I'm not putting nobody in a jail cell who is innocent in order for them to have a press conference to say that they found another terrorist in the Muslim community in America. So you got to know there's a bigger picture and there's a bigger game. And the last thing I want to say is, And the sister brought this up last night, when the ISIS are able to capture the hearts of our young girls. Now, all the cowards have to leave the room. If you're a coward, you gotta get up and go. Good, everybody is brave enough to stay. What attracts young women in general to men? This is for all the younger brothers that are willing to listen. One thing about a real woman, who's a woman of her true nature, she is never attracted to a weak man. Women like men of strength. And a warrior is strong. There's no doubt about that. Why do women love the American soldiers walking around with uniform? Why do American troops in America walk around their uniform downtown? Because there's some women, they just love a soldier. They love a man that ain't running, that ain't scared, that'll fight the good fight and stand up. So those young brothers spend a lot of time on the internet with these young girls who their parents think they're super religious because they got them wearing a headscarf, and then when they come in at night, she's like, Assalamu alaikum, Assalamu alaikum, she's so pious. But then when the door closes, she's on the screen, and the brother overseas like, yo, sister, Assalamu alaikum, check this out. I love you so much, I want to make paradise with you. And I don't know what you're doing in America, but you should be with us. And you know what the Prophet said about Jannah? And all of a sudden he starts talking to her. Women love what they hear, men love what they see. Once he spends quality time with your daughter, who you won't talk to, he got her. And fathers have to be able to teach their daughters openly how men attract them. The same way a young boy needs to know how do women attract us, or attract us. They bait them because they understand the psychology. These are girls that are 16 years old, 18 years old, spending quality time with them on the internet, telling them beautiful hadith, telling them poetry, writing to them love, poetry, making them think this is all part of the religion. Before you know it, say, get on the plane. You say, what? You want me to come? Yeah, I said, I love you, get on that plane. No, stop a lot. I can't wait for my parents. He said, yes, you can. Because your parents are part of the Kufa system. Your parents are part of the Kufa. We're for the deen. Are you for the deen? Yes. Did I tell you I want to marry you? The chef just gave a fatwa. You need to get your parents' advice. You come to me now. She said, did you mean that? You're going to give me a ticket? Listen, girl, I told you I love you. Your ticket is ready. She's like, don't play with me. And all of a sudden she goes to sleep at night and she's thinking, I'm going to the Mujahideen, baby, the Mujahideen. And she's gone. Now once she gets there and see the catastrophe, now she's in trouble. How do you get it back? So we need the government to tell us, if we find young Muslims being deceived and we bring it to their attention, are you just going to throw them in jail, or are you going to let us give them the proper counseling and guidance and protect their lives? But we should not throw young people away who get caught in a web of deception and politics and the war of gamemanship, because it's all business at the end of the day. This is a very complicated situation. The issue of the war, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all these groups, very complicated. And I will tell you this, and then I'm going to end. When this is all over, you're going to be surprised who's behind the scene, who's really running the show. So for Muslims in America, I say to you, we should do everything in our power to protect our country, but not only protect America, we also have to ask the question, how do we protect our Palestinian brothers and sisters? I used to go to a lot of Muslim conferences, they would talk about Palestine. Nobody talks about Palestine now because it's too hot of a button. It's just, shh, don't say nothing. Only thing I see at the Muslim conferences now is American flags, the pursuit of happiness, and how great democracy is. And that just shows how afraid we are. The Jews are not afraid to stand up and say how much they love Israel and how much they support Israel. Why am I an enemy if I say, you know what, I support the legitimate rights of Palestinian people to be free? Why am I a terrorist? Why? Why am I a terrorist? Why? If I say I support the rights of the Afghan people to run their own country, to rid their land of all foreign troops and control their own destiny. If I say I support the right of the Saudis to control their oil and the price of oil and their national security and make decisions that are in the best interest of their people in the world of Islam, why am I the enemy? Why? Why? So one of the things you're going to find out one day, which is going to be really sad, that these groups, you know what ISIS used to stand for? And this will get me in trouble. But if you go on YouTube about 10 years ago, ISIS used to stand for Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. Go on YouTube, and there's an old interview being given. And the ISIS used to stand for Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. That is not amazing. That's 10 years ago. So how did this group become ISIS? I don't know. Where they come from? I don't know. But they don't represent me, and I don't represent them. And I say to you as a Muslim, stop allowing people make you feel that every time something happens in a Muslim community around the world, that you and I are responsible and we have to speak for other people. We need to speak for ourselves in the gates of America. And in the gates of America, none of us are terrorists. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Next question.
Just really quickly though, I want to speak about one scenario because I feel like I have to, because in Chicago, one of my students who I taught at the school, at the Islamic school there, the same school that I got expelled from, I came back and became a teacher. One of the students was entrapped for aiding and abetting or some sort of like crime that he got caught up in, trying to blow up a bar. They basically baited him. These fake jihadi quote-unquote people online, they ended up being agents, and he pushed some sort of button somewhere and got life in prison. And I know his dad, and I know his family. Okay, so I feel the need to sort of share this, and I'm seeing this trend. And I finished my master's degree in mental health. I'm currently in the process of working on my licensure to be a therapist, alhamdulillah. So I think of things with that lens a lot of times. And one consistent dynamic between a young person who is bamboozled by these sort of ambitions in people and their parents is that there is this hyper-authoritarian relationship often between the parents and the young person. To the point where this girl in Birmingham, Huda Muthanna, this Yemeni girl who ran and joined ISIS, that it was like 2 weeks ago they broke the story on her. They said that when she graduated high school, her dad, as a present, gave her a smartphone, but he would check the phone every single day and would look at her photos, her text messages, her emails, and she couldn't have certain apps on there, which is, I understand, there should be boundaries, but that complete and total utter lack of trust as a human being, to the point where you have to check the person's phone every day. And when she would say, "Dad, this is my phone, like I should have some sort of privacy," he would say, "No, nothing's private between you and me." I understand the concern, and I can empathize with the parental concern of wanting to be apart, but you forcing that is giving that child no space to be themselves, no opinion to have, and really forcing them to do something radical and extreme by pushing them out. The example I give is like, if any of you have ever had a cat before, if a cat's tail is wagging and you kind of just hold it so it can't move, the second you let it go, the tail starts going crazy because it's been restrained. And I feel like we need to set up healthy boundaries, not just boundaries, but healthy boundaries in the home, where we not only set up parameters, but we allow for space to learn and grow and make mistakes. If this girl is texting a boy or talking to a guy from school, I can deal with that. I can bring them to Brother Murphy, like we can talk, but if this girl all of a sudden is now trying to join ISIS, like that's a lot more serious of a problem, right? And so if you sort of like suffocate socially young people, they don't have the cognitive milestones achieved yet to think like a rational adult. And they will just make ridiculous decisions sometimes if they don't have some space to breathe, right? Because when people are suffocating, they'll look anywhere for air. And even if it's in the wrong places, even if it's in a sewer, they'll breathe that air because they're suffocating. So when we make young people feel like there's no room for them to live, then they'll reach in the darkest, murkiest, deepest depths of society, and they'll find their love and validation and appreciation. Because people need that, and they function on that, especially teenagers. So we have to give some space, combined with some healthy parameters, and it's really not, it's a case-by-case scenario. There's no one-size-fits-all, but my recommendation is to work with your local imams and local therapists, counselors, inshallah, and try to build that relationship with your young people, inshallah.
I know we've been on this basis for a little bit, but I just wanted to take 1 minute. Everything that's been said so far, alhamdulillah, I think it's jazakallah khair for that. one thing that I think our masajid and our community centers really need to invest time in is that so when I was speaking with the attorneys that are dealing with some of these cases with young Muslims, particularly the one in Chicago, when asked to the young man who is now basically going to be, the charges are still pending, so to speak, but one of the things that he said was that he wishes that there were more spaces for him to actually have intellectual conversations about the Muslim world, which is on fire. Like, he felt that whenever he would talk to the imam or the older adults about what's happening, he was always told to just ignore that. Just focus on your own, go to school, just focus on yourself. And he felt that there was no outlet for him to actually get answers or even have conversations around what was happening. And so in college spaces or in the masjid space or anywhere, no one wanted to actually have real conversations about what's happening. And honestly, post-September 11th, if you remember, yes, I understand, I was under attack. A lot of Muslims felt like they were constantly under attack. So what was what the brother mentioned, people were like, shh, don't say anything. Just keep your mouth shut. But unfortunately, what that does, I think, is really causes a lot of the younger generation to then have those conversations elsewhere where we don't want them to have those conversations, right? So one thing that I've been trying to do with my chaplaincy group, we have about 48 Muslim chaplains now all across the country, is that at our last retreat, we talked about this and we said, how can we have healthy conversations about this, right? Have productive conversations, intellectual conversations about what is it that's happening in the Muslim world, and we need to talk about it because we can't just keep saying, well, it's happening over there, we don't know what's happening, and then just not really ignore them, right? So it's a reality. The masajids need to really think deeply about how do we have these conversations in a productive manner. Yes, we know that there may be an FBI agent right here, right now, listening to what we're saying. Yeah, that's all a reality. But we need to have those conversations. We need to have them so that there's a balance to how this information is being shared, and that inshallah we can talk about what are some ways that we can help the Muslim world, which subhanAllah, may Allah have mercy on all of us.
Okay, so let me change the mood a little bit from ISIS and extremism by asking a question on the mood. It has been observed, if two spouses are working, or even if one spouse is working, the other spouse is involved in so many chores of the home and taking care of so many things. Observe that in our Muslim community, the mood changes, and it just becomes very difficult. A tense environment is created inside home, and that environment and those things come to the masajid also, and you see that lack of a smile, lack of good behavior, especially during the daily course of routine and working with the kids. So do you want to shed some light on how to really bring about the positive mood and positive atmosphere?
Assalamu alaikum. I can't relate much to that because I'm such a happy person every day. Alhamdulillah, and I hope you stay happy. For all the brothers that are married, if you want to be happy, I got one suggestion. Just listen to your wife and say yes ma'am to everything she says. That's it. And you'll be a happier man. My mother told me, if mama's not happy, nobody will be happy. I believe as Muslims, one of the things that we're suffering from that creates this environment for us is we have forgot how to celebrate life. Just be happy, And I think that when we go to work and we watch too much of Fox News and we hear too much of the negativity, I think we embody that. I think the stress that comes with paying a lot of bills and not having quality time for yourself and doing things with your family that bring about that spirit of cooperation is part of it. One of the things that I think we need to do is what we're doing here right now. I think there are more events in the Muslim community, not always religious events, and not always a lot of speeches. But I think if we go out and we have Muslim Family Day and picnic and basketball and soccer and games, and sisters can walk around and maybe not look so, super assalamu alaikum, salam, sister. And brothers the same thing. I think we need to learn how to relax and be happy. But we don't have a lot of social outlets. For the Muslims, when I became a Muslim, one of the things that affected me in a negative way is that the people, after I took Shahada, I was told, that's it. You don't talk to the kuffar, you know, you don't eat out your mother's plate. I just cut everybody off. And I only would talk to Muslims. And one time I actually lived in the masjid. And everything was haram. Like the haram police were born in my backyard. Haram, 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 haram. And after a period of time, I had to come to the realization that I was living in isolation. I believe one of the challenges that we face in America as Muslims, we need a social outlet. And everything in the masjid doesn't have to be about, you know, the laws of religion. Am I making sense? You know what I mean? Like, how does a Muslim have a good time? Like, how do you have a good time? Well, you know, like you get married. Brother said when brother told me, brother, you get married, music is haram. I said, okay, brother, so what are you going to play on your wedding night? Baccarat? Like, I mean, I don't understand. What do you mean? Come on, honey, we're going to put the Quran on. Let's make two du'as. Let's make 4 rakats. Like, really? Like, I just think that sometimes there's a duplicity in our character. I think we have to find our happy place by finding our passion in life. What excites you as a human being? And stop worrying about everybody judging you. See, if I walk with my wife, for example, we go down to the waterfront, and Muslims are like, brother, astaghfirullah, you went down to the beach? Yeah, I went down to the water. Brother, it's haram down there. What's haram, brother? Brother, all those women walking down there, I'm not looking at the women, I don't know where all the women are. Well, brother, I think you should not go down to the beach. I said, brother, you got TV in your house? Yeah. You watch it? Yeah. Oh, brother, that's haram. See all those women on TV? Oh, brother, but it's TV. It's in my home. Yeah. So I think we have to redefine what it means, number one, to be a Muslim, spiritually speaking. Because a lot of times, as the Imam Aziz pointed out, a lot of times for us, Islam is the cosmetic appearance of righteousness. A sister said to me yesterday, what happens when a brother becomes more religious and then he beats his wife? He's very religious and now he puts his wife out because his wife won't put the niqab on. I said, sister, don't make the mistake, that's not religious. A person who becomes sincere in their deen with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the last thing they would do is put a believing woman out in the gates of North America, the cold in Seattle, Washington, because she doesn't wear all black. Only somebody who's losing their mind would do that. And you know how come I know? I used to be one of those extremists. I used to be really extreme. I used to walk in the Haram in Mecca with my shoes on to make tawaf. You know why? I found the hadith. The Prophet said, pray in your shoes. So I walked in the Haram one day, and I was making tawaf with my shoes on. And people say, ya wala, ishfaq anta. Ish hada. I said, ishfaq anta, hada sunnah al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What's good? I was one of those guys. I said, be quiet, this is the sunnah. In the Haram, I'm walking with my shoes, the same shoes I wore in the bathroom. You know why? I found the hadith. I wanted to practice the hadith, but I didn't have the wisdom. So I think that as Muslims, not just talking to imams, to any imams that are here, I don't want to offend you, but sometimes imams are not equipped to deal with these social issues. They don't have the expertise, they don't have the knowledge, and they create more confusion. Because the solution to all of our problems is not going to be just go and read Al-Baqarah or read Ayat al-Kursi. It's not going to happen. There's some deeper issues in our lives that we'll talk to. See, I share this with you. I have 7 children, and they're teenagers, most of them, and I have adults. There are things that my kids share with me that blow my mind. They said, Abi, we got to sit down and talk to you, so you can come out of the dark. I said, what do you mean? They say, we want to talk to you about Muslim schools, because you always talk about how great the Muslim schools are, so sit down and we're going to tell you exactly what happens in Muslim schools. And I go, oh my God, are you serious? They said, yeah, Abi, you want to hear some more? I said, let it go. Let me hear it. Let me hear it. And alhamdulillah, I can say to you, I may be wrong, but I believe I have a wonderful relationship with my kids. They tell me everything. Things that I was shocked to hear, but I'm glad to know. You know why? I would rather they tell me than to tell a stranger. Because I can help them, because they're my children and I love them. And so I believe that in the Muslim community, we need more positive activity that's filled with enjoyment. Like I asked some of the brothers here right now, if your wife says to you, you know what, honey, take me out someplace really nice, where would you take her? To the Indian restaurant around the corner? She's been there 100 times already. She said, honey, take me someplace nice. You say, well, inshallah, we'll save it for Ramadan. She don't want to go for Ramadan. Honey, take me someplace nice. Well, where you want to go? I want to go to the bottom of the ocean. I want to go swimming at the bottom of the ocean. What? Astaghfirullah, you want me to take you in the water? Yes. No, haram. Why? Well, you have to wear hijab. Okay, we get a bodysuit made for Muslim women, but I want to see the creatures of Allah's creation, and I want to swim with the dolphins. My wife swims with the dolphins. She does. She loves to go swimming with the dolphins. She wears all the Islamic attire. It's no men there, and she gets in that ocean water. Why not? I mean, what's the crime she's committing? She comes back and says, brother, you don't know what Allah has made. I have another friend of mine, he goes deep diving in the sea at night. Deep down in the sea, they go fishing. 12 o'clock midnight, he got his whole body armor on. What do Muslims do in America to have fun? What do we do to have fun? We go home, we sit down, watch TV. We go home, watch TV. We go home, watch TV. Like, we don't have a track team. We don't have an official basketball team. We don't have an official debate team. We don't have our own version of Microsoft. We don't own our own Amazon. How about we create a company in Seattle, Washington that employs young Muslims and young people in society and create 100,000 jobs in the city and put our people to work to do something productive. That's what we need to do. And I'll leave you with this thought. You know what makes a lot of Christian organizations and other Jewish organizations who are successful with youth? You know what makes them very successful with youth? They create environments that are youth friendly. See, some brothers, they think bringing their kids to the masjid, that's all. Where you going? Abu, where we going? To the masjid. And the kid goes, oh, man. We got to go to the mosque again? Who are you talking to? Shut up. We're going to Allah's house. Let's go. And he doesn't know when the kid comes here, the reason the kid doesn't want to come here and he's sad, because there's uncle, or the super religious brother who goes, Assalamu alaikum, brother, Allah, come here. You know your father is a good Muslim. Why you wear your pants so long below your ankle? This is hellfire. And I want to tell you now, you wear these Nike hats. This is clothes of kuffar, and the jinn are sitting on top of the hat. The kid is going crazy. Now he's going home at night playing with the hat. Is there a jinn up here? Come on. He said, I got a jinn. I turn it back. Jinn is behind me. No, jinn is behind me. He's playing in my back. Yeah, put it back. Yeah. It's confusing to the kids, man. It's like, okay, what do I do? Muslim women, subhanAllah, you say, sister, you got to cover up. She covers up. This happened to my daughter, by the way. We want to talk about being happy. My daughter was born Muslim. Her name is Zenobia. I took her to the masjid that I used to be the assistant imam of many, many years ago. She walks into the masjid, it's Jum'ah. She has on a long shirt, a pair of jeans, some Timberland boots, because she's like, I'm in New York, I want to be like hip-hop or something. I said, yeah, girl, do you think? As long as you cover Islamically, you can represent yourself. You don't have to look like nobody. You know the deen. She had a headpiece on. She walked into the masjid. You know what the Muslim women asked her? Not the Muslim girls, the Muslim women. They said, sister, did you come here to pray? She said, yeah. Dressed like that? Yeah, something wrong? Astaghfirullah. They made her pray by the doorway. They wouldn't even let her on the main musalla. This is what I call intellectual spiritual retardation. We need a healing. Because if a woman comes to the masjid, we should be excited to see another believer. We should be like, Assalamu alaikum, sister, what's your name? Allahu Akbar, it's good to see you. Instead we go like, sister, can I ask you a question? Yes. I don't know if Allah accepted your prayers. Because you have a stocking on with a hole in you, and your middle toe is out, and I see that you have on nail polish. So I think you need to go home and clean that off, sister, and come back and make your salat all over again, because your salats are not accepted. When did you become God? When? These are the things that happen that we have to work on. And I'm going to leave you with this. Part of our sadness as Muslims is an organized effort by governments in the Muslim world to make Islam seem so backwards that people don't want to be Muslim. Let me give you an example. I met brothers who were half of the Quran who came from a certain Muslim country. I won't mention the country because I don't want you to upset with me. He said, brother, in my country, you go to Quran school as a punishment because you couldn't get good grades to become a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. I said, what? He said, yeah, Quran school is punishment. So, to a young person growing up, memorizing Quran is not an honor. In fact, he said at the university, you don't get any credit for the course. You don't get any testing on it. If you fail, you fail. It doesn't matter. But as long as you do great in the academics of dunya. Now just think about that. What does that do to the mind of a young man? Then we bring imams to America, not this masjid, alhamdulillah, but they bring imams to America, and they say, brother, we're going to make you the imam, but you will lead the prayer, inshallah, and you get $250 every week, inshallah. And the people go home, they live in mansions. but they treat the imam like he's a prayer boy and a servant with no authority to say anything. And if he says the wrong thing, they say, Imam, we will deport you. We call the FBI. What kind of foolishness is this? So we need to create in our community a new blueprint of what it means to be a happy Muslim. And one of the best ways to be happy is to find out the purpose for which Allah made you and live your life. And you will be happy. And no one has to accept you except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So thank you. I don't need to take long, but we need more joy in our community.
Jazakallah khair. We hear in the media that it is time Islam needs reformation. What should be our response?
I give Mama Aziz a chance.
Essentially, I think when this question is brought up, the Western eye that is assessing the problem is not looking at theology. They're usually looking at behavior. They are assessing what Muslims do because people don't necessarily have the time to take a deeper look at theological principles. Talal Asad, who's by the way Muhammad Asad's son, graduate of NYU, an amazing established anthropologist. He has this book that is titled Formations on the Secular, which I advise you to take a look at. It's a really amazing read. And Talal Asad says basically that Jews and Christians, they are expected to read their own scriptures in their historical context. They're expected to be critical of their own text. They are also expected that not every single one of them is going to follow the text to the letter. But somehow Muslims are expected to understand our own scriptures the same exact way, and we are all expected to ignore the historical contextualization of the text, and we are also expected to apply the scriptures in our lives in a uniform fashion with complete disregard for culture and so on and so forth. But that again is part of the prevailing anti-Muslim bigotry that is taking place in this society. So what I usually do when people start speaking about the Quran and start speaking about Islam and the need for reform in Islam, I acknowledge one thing, that Muslims have not been, as of recent, have not been the best representation of Islam. And I agree, there's so many behavioral problems, many of which Imam Abdul Malik talked about, that need to change and must change. And Muslim communities, especially in the West, are exerting a lot of effort to draw a line between cultural practices and the pure essence of the deen. I don't get myself, however, caught up in lengthy conversations about such things, because people who say these things are not necessarily loving people who want peace, who just want us to live in harmony with each other, and therefore we need to reform our own tradition. They already have pre-digested ideas about Islam. And so I usually take the ball and kick it back in their courts and ask them, by the way, you need to read your own Bible a little bit more often. You need to understand your own Bible. You need to understand your own scriptures. Don't waste your time reading my book. Spend your time reading your own book. And then if you have some knowledge of biblical teachings, for example, we used to, at Ohio State, we used to have this preacher that would come every single day to our campus in order to point out the verses of violence in the Quran. And he kept doing this until I stood one day. I was just so angry, and I was a college student back then, and I did a lot of frivolous things. But I stood to him and I said, I quoted from the Bible, from Deuteronomy and other books, about Jesus who will come back at the end of time and punish the disbelievers and punish the sinners. I read to him verses in the Bible about how the cities of the enemy should be sacked and destroyed, and how men, women, and children should be enslaved. That's in your Bible. Why do you spend so much time talking about the Quran when the Bible, and I'm not saying the Bible is a bad book. The Bible, for the most part, is a book that is inspired by the Spirit of God. But essentially, there's a historical context to such readings, and you need to understand them in those contexts. So, that is usually my response. I don't get apologetic and I don't get defensive when people say Islam needs a reform. I always tell them, your mind needs a reform. It is not the other way around.
So I received 5-6 cards, so they are similar questions, and I'm going to maybe combine it into 2 questions. First is that when we discover that our siblings, our brothers and sisters, or our kids are engaged in kabair and having some relationships outside and all other things, that's first how to deal with them and how to help our kids and our siblings. The second question is about how to give advice to our Muslim youth and college in general to stay strong, be proud, and be who you are.
So just really quickly to add on about the point of reformation is that in every other realm of life, we demand qualification. You don't go to a doctor that's not a trained physician. You don't go to a lawyer that's not, certified by the bar. You don't go to an engineer that hasn't, a civil engineer that isn't certified by the county for the building that they're going to build. So you also don't go to a university that's not accredited. There's all different kinds of checks and balances when it comes to intellectual honesty that we abide by when it comes to the secular realm, but the minute it comes to the religious tradition, being Muslim becomes enough of a qualification to speak about the sciences, and that's just not fair. Regardless of the whole idea of having ijazah and this like that, it's just not fair. We treat every other realm with so much respect and dignity, and we demand qualification from people that we are being taught by or treated by, but when it comes to the Islamic realm, we're like, that's okay, it's fine, it's just religion, right? So I think that's a little bit of a double standard that we have to address. And Reformation, by the way, historically speaking, the Reformation referred to a returning back to fundamentals, not a progressive moving of, and shedding of fundamentals for the sake of, modernity or to fit in, right? Validation of a society. Because one of them is dynamic, one needs to be the anchor, and we can't confuse the two. So to address this question about, how to engage in a conversation with somebody, whether it's with relationships, whether it's with a person who is watching obscene material on the internet or television or whatever, any sort of detrimental behavior, the first step in any conversation with this regard is what is your rapport with that person? We studied this amazing data in my counseling courses about therapeutic rapport, about how 1 or 2 sessions with a client should actually just be about establishing a relationship with that person. And so how do we approach somebody, and what's the delivery method for the content? One of the beautiful things about the Prophet Muhammad was that he said the same things that we say today to one another, or I should say we say the same things that he said to his companions, but he said it in such a way that was so palatable and so acceptable. You guys know the famous story about the young man who wanted a fatwa for zina, basically, right? He wanted a fatwa for zina. In the conversation where a young man is asking the Prophet ﷺ, can I get permission to have intercourse with this woman, the Prophet ﷺ never said the word no. Imagine how powerful that is. His delivery was void of the word no. All he said was, how do you feel about the people that you are related to? And would you be okay if someone asked for those same things from that person? And he made this young Sahabi think. And the Sahabi said in the narration when he's walking away, he said, when I was coming to the Prophet ﷺ, I wanted nothing more than to get permission for intercourse. And when I was leaving, I hated nothing more than illegal intercourse. Like transformation that occurred in a very simple conversation. So we have to worry about, number one, what is your relationship, my relationship with the person that we're trying to serve? And I'm not saying help or advise or teach, but serve, because this is where it has to come from. The second, after your relationship establishment, right, are you a person who can even talk to this person? The second thing is, where is your advice coming from? Is it coming from a place of love or a place of domination? Do you want to establish it over like, you're wrong, this is why you're wrong, and you're horrible? Or do you set up a situation, because if it's coming from a place of love, you're going to do meticulous planning to make sure that your delivery is good and accepted. So instead of telling them that they're wrong in front of everybody, you might do it privately. In fact, you might take them out to eat. Maybe buy them their favorite meal. And as you're finishing this wonderful time together, having a conversation about life and other things, then you slowly and very mildly slip in, I have this thing that I really wanted to ask you about. Is it okay if we talk about it here? Look at the difference between slamming the hammer on somebody and the second one. You know what the difference is? The second one takes a lot more work. That's why we don't want to do it. But really, if we're truly trying to help someone, that work shouldn't bother us. So number one, what's your relationship? Number two, your effort. And number three is we have to understand that people take time to change. We took time to change. I once had a father come to me and tell me, my son is a munafiq. Just very point blank said that. My son's a munafiq. Just like, wow, that's pretty amazing that you were able to establish that, right? It's good that you can see directly to his heart, mashallah, right? Please tell me, what is my level of iman, right? Like, his dad came, my son's a munafiq. I said, okay, that's very interesting. This is the person who's going to be worse punished in hellfire, may Allah protect us. Why would you say that though? Like, what credential has he given you? He said, well, the Prophet ﷺ said very clearly, the hardest prayers for the munafiqeen are what? Salat al-Fajr and Salat al-Isha in the masjid. And my son doesn't come with me, so he's a munafiq. 1 + 1 = 2, right? Like, because that's how fiqh works. No, it doesn't. I'm being sarcastic, okay? And I told him, I said, how old are you? He said, I'm 40 something. I said, how old is your son? He said, 15. I said, when did you start praying? Especially in the masjid. He goes, a few years ago. 35. So your son still has 20 years. Give your son the same amount of time that you took, right? Why do you demand this level of faith and practice from somebody when you yourself didn't demand it from yourself? لِمَا تَقُولُونَ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. Why do you say things to people that you don't even do? Right? There has to be this sense of like sincerity and accountability when it comes to advising other people. That doesn't mean that you have to do everything that you advise, right? If I don't, for example, pray 100%, I can't tell people, okay, you don't have to pray because I don't pray. No. But what it means is that when it comes to advising others, we have to come from a place of sincerity, and part of that is being patient with people for that growth to occur. Like I said in the khutbah yesterday, one of my teachers told me this very profound statement. He said, we are in the business of planting oak trees. Oak trees take hundreds of years to grow and fully develop and mature. Are you willing to plant the seeds of something that you may not even see the benefit of it in your life? That is ikhlas. That is sincerity. That you're planting these seeds and this person may change after you pass away. You know, it's funny, I mentioned this kind of offhand. I was expelled from Islamic school in 9th grade. Like, I was the kid that when I walked into the classroom, the teachers would be like, Ya Allah, I made dua for a flat tire, Ya Allah. Why did you not answer my call, Ya Allah, right? Like, I was that kid for these teachers. They really, I was horrible, right? And I had this one Quran teacher, Miss Mahari, and she was Syrian, mashallah, was a very strong woman. And she would teach us Quran like old school Syrian style. We'd sit at our desks or on the floor, and she would read and we would repeat, and she would read and we would repeat. And Miss Mahari was like the only teacher that could control 9th grade Abdurrahman Murphy, right? Because she had this like strength in her that I really admired and I respected, but she always surrounded it with love. Like whenever I got in trouble, she would take me outside and she would talk to me, what's going on? What's happening, right? And I later went back and became a teacher and actually the director of discipline at that school. Right? Before I became imam. And what's interesting is that it took like 7 years from when I was in middle school to when I got to college for the advice that Miss Mahari gave me to go from my head to my heart. 7 years. In fact, she doesn't even know what I'm doing now. She doesn't even know what I do in my life, the service to the deen that I'm committed to. She has no clue. I haven't spoken to her in a couple of years. But look at her sincerity is that she gave me the time of day when no one else would. I was the kid that families would talk about in whispers at dinner parties. Did you hear about Redmond Murphy? I heard he doesn't practice Islam anymore. I heard he got expelled from the Islamic school. I I was the kid that would be talked about. Now those same parents send their kids to me. Can you help my kid? The same parent who used to talk about me and what a terrible job my parents did raising me because I was a troublemaker in the community. Now those same parents come to me. Ustaz, can you please help my child? Why? Because they weren't willing to give me time to grow. Miss Mahari was. And look at now, man, we ask Allah to give her a copy. Any khair that I do, which is very little, we ask Allah to give her all of the copy of that. Just because she has some time to take me after class, it doesn't matter, you okay? So when you're advising somebody, what's your relationship? Is it coming from a place of love or a place of dominance? Because the nafs is going to trick you and make you feel like if you're dominant, you're going to win. But it really has to come from a place of love. And the third thing is, give the person time. Be patient. Stick with them. Not one and done. It's not ones and zeros. There's a lot in between those. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq.
Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah, very well said. I wanted to, something I noticed over the years is that parents, and I'm a parent and I have 3 children, parents are always seeking a roadmap by which they're able to raise their children. It's almost like, you're navigating the seas and you're searching for a maritime map. And the maritime map will basically tell you this is north, this is south, this is east, this is west. There's an island here, there's a bay there, you need to avoid this and you need to go there, right? That's nice and dandy, as they say. The problem is maritime maps do not account for icebergs. They don't account for changes of weather. It doesn't tell you anything about the weather forecast. And so there you are, navigating, you're at sea, and as a parent you're trying to navigate, you're following everything, you're going by the book, kids are going to the masjid, and you're talking to them, you're communicating with them, and you're being the most loving parent, and you're being friends with your kids, you spend time with them, and you take them to places, and you do things together. You're not a pushy parent, you're not a controlling parent, you're not a tyrant, right? Again, you are the exact opposite of all the examples that were brought up on stage today. And your kid still gets in deep trouble. And then you are losing your mind because you don't know what happened. I tried everything. I followed the roadmap. But the problem is that you followed the maritime map and you did not account for icebergs. Icebergs do happen. Is it impossible for a religious kid who grew up in this community, who memorized the Quran, who attended weekend school, who was leading in the youth group, is it impossible for this kid, as Imam Murphy said, is it impossible for him to end up having a relationship with another girl or another guy? Is it impossible? I'm telling you, wallahi, it happens all the time. So the challenge is not what to do in times of peace. The challenge is what is it that we parents can do, what kind of coping mechanisms we have in times of war, when things get really rough, when the sea becomes tumultuous, and when there's a storm, and the storm is about to wreck your ship, and that is your family. What to do? So we spent so much time preparing ourselves for how to basically, keep the ship sailing in the right direction. But we spend very, very little time learning how to manage crises when they come our way. So I advise you, right now, if you have little children growing up, you need to be prepared from now. If God forbid, my kid gets in trouble with drugs, with gangs, with extramarital relations, with faith issues, 15 years ago, we used to think that sex and drugs, that's the biggest problem. Right now, atheism is one of the biggest problems that the youth are facing, right? And I'm inviting, I'm saying this to myself as a parent, and I say this to you, spend as much time at least preparing yourself for when times get rough, because sometimes they do. And those icebergs pop up here and there, and we just have no control over that. It just happens. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings it to that. He brings a test to your life and to that of your children, and you just have to learn how to navigate your way through the storm, because storms do happen.
Jazakumullah khairan. We are out of time, but we still have 2 more sessions inshallah. One main final session. We'll still give you a 15 minutes break, so we'll start at 4:55. That session will have all of these speakers making the final message for this conference. We'll also have Imam Joban as well, and after that we have award ceremony for all the kids who participated in the contest, and also there's entertainment here, inshallah. So that would be the end. And before we leave, I hope inshallah everybody has got a copy of the ticket. You still have time. We have booth out there. You can use the credit card machine to inshallah buy the ticket. Every one of you inshallah ta'ala I hope will depart with a ticket in your hand. We have our annual banquet just 2 weeks away. We have Sheikh Abdul Rauf Al-Khawazi again this year coming. So I hope inshallah you go and purchase your ticket. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Just give the sister a minute, and I want to make 1 minute on that topic, inshallah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can we do it? Can you give us a minute, please?
I'm really sorry, I'll make this really short. One of the things that I commonly hear from particularly the South Asian community, and again, I'm not saying that this is only relevant to the South Asian community, but a lot of the fathers that I've interacted with, whenever there's an issue, particularly with young men or even women, what I hear from them constantly is, oh, all this counseling that you want to do, and all this really what Abdurrahman was talking about, in terms of communication and all of this and that. They almost literally, from when we were doing assessment of for my own field work, we found that at least 70-some% of our the fathers that I was talking to, they would give me the same kind of rhetoric, which is, I didn't give my parents this hard time. I came to this country, I worked really, really hard. This is all laziness. These kids, they're just spoiled. This is laziness. We came to this country, we worked very, very hard. We didn't, sit around and say, well, you don't talk to me nicely. We didn't even say that to our father. This is all basically made up. They're now thinking that they're in America, and so they can say whatever they want. You can't touch me, I'm gonna call the cops. What is this? They really believe that this is all just a bunch of laziness. We didn't do this to our parents. We worked very, very hard. We came here, whether it was for Microsoft or wherever they were working, right? They worked really hard. And so for many of the fathers that I've been speaking to, they're really very frustrated with the fact that they believe that a lot of this is just laziness, and since they didn't do this with their parents, then why are they having to suffer this with their own children, right? And I think this is a common reality or reaction that a lot of parents that I've interacted with have shared with me. But one thing that I've tried to respond with is to say, subhanAllah, you're in a completely different world with a completely different context. And my concern for you is, what do you really want? If you really want the solution, and you want a strategic, plan, and that will give you the results that you want, then what other choices do you have? If you continue to think that you will just yell at your children, literally just, a lot of the Hyderabadi parents that I've been working with think that, and no offense to all the Hyderabadis, I'm Hyderabadi, I love Hyderabadis, right? Especially the biryani. But they believe that it's fine. You just yell at them and things will be fine because that's how their parents dealt with it. And look at where they are today. They made life work, and they put themselves together. And it's all a matter of discipline, and that's it. But the truth is that if that's the solution that you found and it's not working, then why are you going to people like Abdurrahman or myself or the imams, right? The truth is that's not working. So if your end goal is to find resolution, then you have to take a little bit of, inshallah, maturity and humility and say, look, what is it about that what I'm doing is not working? And maybe what my parents did with me and what I think worked is not the only solution, right? So I just wanted to share that that's been the common answer, or, in my interactions with a lot of the fathers that I've been talking to have said, this is all just a game. This whole psychology thing that you guys are talking about, we didn't use it. This is all, basically it's an issue of discipline. This is an issue of laziness. They don't want to listen to us. And, that's not how we survived. And so they're expecting the same for their children. But my, concern with that is, look, if that's still not working, if you're yelling and you're screaming and the discipline's not changing, you have to change something, right, in order for there to be a real solution.
Takbir. What I want to to say, inshallah, is that I think it's one of the things that we have to stop doing in our community. We have to stop focusing too much on people's sins. Because there's a great quote by James Allen. He says, be careful of your thoughts, because your thoughts are the source of your ideas. Be mindful of your ideas, because your ideas will lead to your actions. Be aware of your actions, because your actions is the manifestation of your character. And know that your character is the fulfillment of your destiny. I think one of the tragic things that we do in the religious community is we focus so much on the sin, what's wrong, when there's so many great things that young people are doing every day that we can celebrate. And for every young person that is here that came to this conference and is sitting here listening to us lecture and helping the masjid, first I want to say may Allah bless you and thank you for coming, because you could be so many other places as you. The other thing is that we have to accept something as human beings, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control. Sometimes there are things that will happen in life. There is no conversational solution. When a brother or a sister comes and say, listen, I got to tell you something. Say, wait, what is it? No, I got to tell you. Wait, what is it? I did something wrong. Do you really want to talk about it? I don't want no confessions, because this is not Catholicism. We're not Catholics. You don't have to tell me what you did. No, but I got to tell you what happened to me, because I feel so bad. I'm willing to listen. But even when you listen to people, sometimes the best thing you can do is say, you know what? I pray for you. Sometimes we develop addictions and we have dark secrets and we have things in our lives that are affecting us spiritually. There's no conversation that's going to solve that problem. The best way to solve your problems as a Muslim, one of the best ways, is talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah to give you that strength, to give you that discipline, to give you that blessing. Because things will happen in life. Life can be difficult at times. And being a Muslim in any country where you are the minority, and we are a very small part of the population, and the things that the young people get trapped into, you know what amazes me? It's like the adults make kids believe that we don't have the same challenges. We have the same challenges. Sometimes the young men come and say, brother, you gotta help me, brother. I'm fasting every day, but I'm still looking at girls. I say, congratulations, brother, you're not looking at men. So I'm happy for you. However, I congratulate men in America. When I see men still looking at women, I say congratulations. Alhamdulillah. And when I see women say, I looked at a brother, he's real handsome, congratulations. In this environment in which we live in the world in which we live in. But the point is this, right? Let's face one of the most important realities, that we're human beings and that we will make mistakes. But we should not sit in the seat of judgment that belongs to Allah and condemn people who have made mistakes as though they have no potential to have a second chance. Some of the best people in the world were sinners who were transformed into becoming what we call saints. And every sinner can become a saint, and every saint has a past in sin. Everyone has made mistakes in their lives before. Everyone, even the parents who are so strict. Don't you talk to that boy, you hear me? You talk to that boy, I'll send you home. How did you marry your cousin? Did you really talk to her just the first time, brother, when you got married? Really? Do you really want me to believe that you grew up together in your home country and you knew you was going to marry your cousin and you didn't blow her a little kiss when you were 7? How are you? Yeah. Don't worry, we got to wait, but we got to, come on, this is human nature. Some brothers, they say to a brother, you're not married, you don't talk to the sister, you hear me? You hear me, brother? But then when we go to work, some of us as men, we see a beautiful woman. We got a beautiful wife at home, but there's a sister in your office that's so pretty. Wow, she's so beautiful. And your wife, you go to your wife, you say, Ahmed, did you look at that beautiful girl I saw at the reception? No, stop, I would never look at her. Stop lying. Stop lying. And sisters, stop asking those kind of questions, because they're very unhappy. You know if a woman is beautiful, we men, we've seen her beauty. I mean, come on. The women saw Yusuf. Come on, Yusuf was so handsome. Just be honest. My sister told me stuff a lot, but I'd like to deal with pure reality. And I would love to see Muslim youth get married, if they can, at a young age, but I like to see us stop pretending that we don't have real challenges. Do you agree with me? Do you agree? Thank you. May Allah bless you. Thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum.
So inshallah we'll start next session at 5:05 inshallah sharp. So let's take a quick break. Barakallah.